Jayashree, first question is to you. Jayashree, so how do you think are organizations managing their compliance process during COVID-19? And you foresee managing, and you see them managing post-COVID?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Sorry for the small technical glitch initially. Thank you, Pramita. And I would like to, give you, we have been advising a lot of clients for the last 2 months how they should look at their process and how they should see that it is beneficial and they are 100% compliant. So if I can request just the presentation to come up, just one slide which describes the entire process, and I'll take that process, maybe 2-3 minutes, I'll explain the steps and then I can take questions at the end. Yeah, just the second slide. This is the compliance. Just bring up the second slide. Next one. Yeah. So just to give you, Uncomplicate is a platform which we help compliances. We were one of the initiators of compliances, and we help corporates to basically get them compliant, completely, totally 100% compliant at all times. So just to give you, this process is what we have been following, and we have helped customers to come up. Even now, all the, whether it is GCs or business processors, whoever they are, we have been able to help them, and they remain 100% compliance. And as the time goes by, I'll be giving you a lot of information related to what kind of changes and compliances would happen. So let's stick to the process. From the bottom, at the bottom of the pyramid, if you look at understanding risks of organization, whether it's a manufacturing, warehouse depot, head office, or branch offices, you have various different units. You could have beyond. This is just to give you an example of what kind of a unit. So you have to look at unit wise and then understand what is the risk. So in this portion, you could see that, for example, you get into a manufacturing unit, a specific factory in UP or Haryana. Look at it, how many departments do you have within the manufacturing unit? So, for example, you have an operations, within operations, you would have somebody taking care of hazardous waste, somebody taking care of HR related stuff, somebody taking care of legal. So you have different departments within an organization, within a unit. What I'm calling unit is one particular office or one particular manufacturing unit. So that is how you segregate it and understand different KRAs within that unit, within that department. Let me unit is a factory and department is within the unit. So you look at what are the KRAs, list down the KRAs which could be there already, or if not, we did it a lot for many clients. As of now, they did not know different people used to work on different, and they used to interact between departments. So we listed down the KRAs defined in each department of that unit. Once that is done, it becomes easy that actionable items becomes there, and you find out the next orange box, understand the applicable laws relevant to each unit. So here, let me take 1 minute or half a minute more by saying the applicable laws. Rather, I'll explain that in the green box. So here you understand what are the basic laws which will be applicable, whether it is central and state. So coming to the green box, which says compilation of all compliances specific to central and state specific laws. Here, you know the laws, you know ABC 20-30 laws which are applicable. So now how do you take out or cull out compliances within that particular legislation? So each legislation, you have to read through each legislation, which many offices have done and many offices we have done as of now. So there are 5 things which you need to cull out from each legislation. I'll just briefly tell you about what are the 5 things which will help you a lot to people who have not done it, or they can do it now. First one is the registration. So any business or any law would have a registration or just an intimation. A Factories Act would be like you need a factory license, or a shop and establishment would have a registration. mandatory or non-mandatory is a different thing, but it would have a registration. So that is something which you need to do and get the registration. The second one is very interesting. Once you have the registration, then you are in business. What is it? How do you tell the government that you are doing business in the right manner? What is required? So there you have some kind of filing of return, some kind of maintenance which you need to do, register maintenance or some maintenance, or some welfare maintenance which you need to maintain a register, or some displays which you need to do as displays within your office, outside your office, or you need to have displays in your intranet, depending how we can discuss it. Of course, if anybody has questions, we can certainly discuss that. And the filings could be these days, when I come to the labor laws, maybe later, there are integrated filings. So that's an advantage. So if you have some 40 laws which you have to maintain from the labor laws, so you have to go ahead and file integrated or separate law. So that is the second part, which is the filings and displays, the second part. The third part, which is the fees. Either you pay a fees to get that license or to maintain, or like a PF filing, you need to pay money. The third one is anything and everything related to fees or payment. The fourth one is prohibitions. So you have to look at certain prohibitions. For example, 90 days you can't keep your waste management, which is not, you can't keep it within 90 days. So there are various prohibitions which you also need to take care of. That is the fourth one. And the fifth one is simple, which is renewal. So depending on what is kind of renewal you have, certain things are standardized renewal, 2 years, 3 years. Certain things are given specifically for the organization on the renewal. So that is how we look at all the compilation of all the compliances related to state and specific laws. Once we have done this, we are fine, we have everything. Then you conduct a complete risk assessment or a gap analysis. Because there is where you come to know that because your frontline people who are actually doing the compliance are not legal guys. There is a legal department, and that legal department will get that gap analysis report, and then you can go ahead and assess the gap and fulfill those gaps, which becomes a easier part. Once this is done, the risk is assessed, everything is done, then it is easy. Most of you would have a platform, or you could transform them into this centralized platform, which could be central, which could be decentralized. Most of people now have a global platform, which is easier to manage sitting in the head office, or the board is able to see the compliances, non-compliances and compliances. And then comes the certification. The certification is an important thing because as per Section 154 of the Companies Act, your certification has to be in place for every board meeting. So that certification also comes out. If you have this process, the certification which comes out would be 100%. And the final box, without this, you cannot be compliant at all times, which is the update. So you look at it. So these days, when we go further in the conversation, this specific box, which is the update, I will be able to give you more information, which will be more eye-opening. There are so many exemptions. Sorry.
Please continue.
Okay, sorry. So, the update would be in detail. So if you do not do an update, then the whole process is of no use. So therefore, this update is the most crucial thing in the entire process, be it a small municipal update or whether it is a state update. Central updates are easy because everybody keeps track. The state updates and district updates are the most, even we even take care of panchayat. There are certain states where panchayat also rules, and the panchayat rules have to be taken care of. So we do it in that, and that helps the corporates to be compliant. This is the process, and today I will explain a little bit more on the updates when we come to that section of our conversation. Any questions, please make a note, or you can put it up on the chat box, and I can address it when it comes up. Pramita, anything else you would want me to add, or we could take it up later on the updates part?
We can take it up later. We'll move on to the next question. Thank you, Jayashree. That was very, very informative. We'll move on to the next question and on to you, Shweta. So, Shweta, if you can highlight on what are the key corporate governance challenges that have emerged during COVID, and what are the measures that are being taken by the government in this regard? And yeah, Shweta, if you can address this.
Sure. So good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on compliance challenges. I think and I hope that it is a useful one and that everybody is able to gain something out of this. And thank you, Pramita, for posting this question. I think corporate governance is going to be the next challenging issue for most compliance officers across the country. And as we all know that the good governance is the bedrock of successful and long-lasting businesses. So while there are steps which have been taken by the regulators, by the government in this regard, I think there is still a lot which remains to be done, both from the end of the regulators as well as from the end of the organizations, and especially during these times with respect to practices, policies, in order to endure and sustain their businesses in the long term. So if we look at the primary obligations, what are the primary obligations that any head of an organization would have in order to maximize their returns? That the entity should ensure that all kind of other interests that have been taken into account has been considered. So if the overall obligation of the directors, we have to understand in their fiduciary duty, which is to ensure integrity, independence, and be involved. So they have to take into consideration the first aspect, which is the shareholders' interest. Let me just see if I can upload or I can request my colleague to upload one slide on this. This just would help. Anyways, so the first thing that is to be taken into consideration is the shareholders' interest. So a reassessment of the revenue and the profitability projections will be required, and therefore it is important to maintain the confidence of shareholders, particularly for companies which have suffered disproportionate impact during this epidemic. Am I audible to everybody? I'm not sure if it is working fine.
Yes.
Okay, great. The second issue that I think is important for the directors to consider is the regulatory disclosures. So the listed entities would require to ensure that if there is any material effect on the business or the operations of the companies with respect to closure of an important manufacturing facility due to supply chain disruptions or due to labor issues, or the required intimation that needs to be sent to the stock exchange where the company shares are listed have not been done in the right manner. So these are certain certain fiduciary duties of the directors. The duty of fair dealing with respect to business continuity risk, like the direct engagement of the members of the board with the management team to evaluate the business continuity risk with respect to HR policies, with respect to stakeholders' expectations, and also to avoid a negative media publicity that also could be in today's time of social media, it becomes a huge issue to manage for organizations. And then also monitoring the third party activities, that becomes a huge challenge. Then the other important aspect is to be informed and knowledgeable. So be informed of the oversight of the material risks to the company during the outbreak. Then there is also a duty of supervision and management. So there will be a fast action plan teams, like the members of the board and management. They may have to ensure a fast action plans and teams in order to ensure any kind of a crisis that is dealt with in an immediate manner. And then there is a duty of care with respect to consumers. So a constant communication with the consumer should be maintained in order to keep them abreast of any disruption of services and allowing them the opportunity to secure alternate source of supply. So that would become a bedrock of a good understanding of business and your customer. So the companies will have to strive to ensure transparency. I think that is going to be the underlying factor in undertaking stringent compliances despite the relaxation of norms by the regulators. And the CFOs and compliance officers shall have to take strict measures to check unethical behavior and ensure stringent compliance of all statutory norms. And there is a need for better preparedness in order to carry out the statutory compliances well in advance in order to overcome the challenges and the vulnerabilities that will be faced in such kind of a disaster situations. The other aspect which will be relevant is in adhering to the highest standards of ethics and integrity in the light of the expected increase in business pressures and higher risk of unethical behavior on account of the foreseeable global recession pursuant to the kind of times that we are living in COVID-19. And the regulators will also have to further relax the statutory provisions with respect to compliances and to provide exemptions with in case of a worsened scenario. I see there to be a scenario which may get worse from where it is now, because the number of patients have been increasing. So what has been taken as a step with respect to MSME, I think is a welcome move. But that is not enough, and probably there would be more steps that would be required from the regulator side as well. And the regulators will have to consider grant of financial packages not only to MSMEs but also to other businesses who may not fall within the bracket of MSME but still would have the challenges of survival or will have the minimized non-performing assets of financial institutions, and also would have the concerns to prevent the layoff of workers and employees, because that is becoming a huge issue. In fact, most of the queries that are coming to us is in relation to laying off of workers and employees, and there are all kinds of messages which are spreading around. And the regulators will also have to consider appointment probably of a nodal agency or something in order to check strict implementation of the safety, the sanitation, the hygiene and the social distancing standards and norms. In fact, we will talk about it more in detail when we are talking about, now that we are talking of opening up of the organizations, what are the kind of safety, sanitation, hygiene and social distancing norms that we are going to talk about. And the companies will have to strive to ensure the transparency in undertaking the stringent compliances despite the relaxation of norms by the regulators. So I think the board will have to take a front foot when it comes to ensuring that business remains ethical and compliant, and the investments will be subject to stakeholders' satisfaction with the compliance successes of the concerned business. So a virtual compliance structure shall have to be established to ensure the control and standard aspect, the delegation of responsibility, the analysis and assessment, and the compliance reporting. That would become absolutely imminent in future times. And the businesses will be required to view it as an opportunity to strengthen their trust through disclosure, as the same will be required not only by the stakeholders, regulators, but also market dynamics as well. And the whole, the change or the paradigm shift will be from the survival of the fittest. The equation will change to survival of the most compliant and ethically correct organizations. And this period will see various business decisions for which businesses will be remembered for and identified with as they stand exposed to their weaknesses. So the businesses can successfully portray their stability through compliance and maintenance of ethical standards, and they will have to stand to benefit from the trust the market economics will place on them. So the organizations will have to emphasize a lot on the promotion of ethical and responsible decision making through formal and transparent code of conduct that most organizations will have to put in place. The safeguarding of the integrity in financial reporting, that will become very critical. They will have to take timely and balanced disclosures and recognize and manage risks in the right manner, and recognize the interest of shareholders. That will become very relevant, and that has always been relevant. Then establish internal controls, checks and balances within the organizations. And based on the self or internal regulation, you will have to incentivize the employees for better performance. You will have to talk about higher profits for shareholders, the value maximization plan for the organization, quick accountability of the officers of the organization, and talk about internal audit and control. So the role of compliance will also, will see a paradigm shift, and they probably will no longer remain a tick box work. And the risk management will have a higher priority in these kind of uncertain environment, which includes the physical, the technological, the financial, the cyber risks that are involved. And there will be tools which will be required to manage the financial crisis, fast track action plan, and a direct link will be required probably between the board members and the management to lay solid foundation for the management and oversight. And therefore, the companies or organizations which have an integrity in financial reporting, which has a shareholders' interest satisfaction in mind as a paramount, which has self and internal regulations, checks and balances in place, and which have their value maximization projections in place, and which has stringent anti-bribery and corruption practices, are the ones who are bound to succeed in the longer run. So while we are going to talk about a lot of these issues during our discussion today, these are going to be the norm setting. You know, we will talk about what are the kind of changes that have been brought in under the corporate governance norms also by SEBI. A lot of relaxations which have come, but we will talk about it a little later in our questions.
Great. Very insightful, Shweta. Anumeha, from an in-house counsel's perspective, can you shed some light on this?
Yeah, thanks, Shweta. I think from one of the, you've touched upon some very, very important, high-level issues here, and I think organizations are looking into it very strongly, if not very speedily, I must say, because till now we were still kind of fathoming that it will get better, and it's, maybe it's just a couple of months or couple of weeks, but now we know that this is going to be a long-term issue. People will be working from home, and we will have limited access to the repositories that we had in our organization. So keeping in mind all of those, as an in-house counsel, my challenges start from very, very basic things when it comes to corporate governance. Something like I need to, immediately once we got in, and after a couple of weeks, we had to change our contract management policy. Who's going to be authorized to execute documents? How are you going to execute documents? Because not all organizations would have been on DocuSign. So again, corporate governance at a very high level that Shweta touched, and now the points which as in-house counsel, the execution part of it. So contract management policy, updated people, circulated to everybody, because when the auditors come in later, you might have changed it, but didn't circulate it well. Are your practices now in line with the new policy? Then you have to make certain policy changes to your employee policies also, because the government now expects you to do all kinds of incentivizations and penalizations to employee for keeping up with the compliance practices the government is asking you to while coming back to work. Have you made those changes? Have you circulated them? And some changes that will be changing employment conditions. How are you going to, how are you taking those consents from employees? These are the practical things that I am looking at today. This is what is bothering me day in and day out, and we're working together with our organization for it. One other thing is, at this time, typically what happens in all corporates, it is audits, statutory audits. Where are your statutory audits? Where are your auditors? Are they getting access to all the all your books of accounts? Are they getting access to all the minutes of the meetings? Half of it is in the office. You are in house. So how are you managing all of that? Again, there were a lot of challenges out here, but then the organization needs to come together: finance department, legal department, compliance department, and we are majorly able to give our auditors the backup documents which they need to go through to be able to prepare the audit report on time. These are the very basic corporate governance challenges that I'm seeing here, but just taking the cue from what Shweta said. Ours is an American organization, so when we had our quarterly filings in April end, normally, and it's not happened any time in history where the shareholders were interested in what happened in the quarter that went by, and it is not even the law to talk about the upcoming quarter because of XYZ legal complications with Securities and Exchange Commission. But the shareholders had just accepted, the quarter one is gutted. What about the quarter two? What are you going to do about quarter two? So again, as transparency requirements for your future, you need to talk about quarter two, but as legal complications and compliance complications, you can't go out and talk about it. So walking that thin line for our international directors and our CEO was a difficult challenge, but good thing was that we orchestrated it around that and we were able to manage it. So transparency, compliance, like Shweta said, all of these things will have to go hand in hand. Looking at the legal aspects, because not all government agencies around the world have still started helping us out with those leniencies and those the points that need to be now considered for us to comply, but in the real time situations. That is why we need to really go in hand in hand with a lot of our other departments. I think that is it from the house on this particular question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Anu.